So the second Riftlab Trials has come to an end, and it is all said and done with Prismaticism taking first place with Kaisa. And with that being said as well, the top 4 decks were Kaisa, but we're not necessarily going to be taking a deep dive into those top 4 decks, but we're going to be looking at these decks that ended up having a really great showing despite Kaisa being on the dominant field, as well as Prismaticism's #1 deck. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So first and foremost, I want to be a little bit careful about how we go about this, because I don't want to, kind of take a hit or a stab at, saying that Kaisa isn't necessarily worth observing. Quite the opposite, actually. Kaisa is one of the best deck options, even more so now that Yi was actually completely taken out of even competing in the top 8, which is just absolutely insane. And we're taking a look right now at the top bracket of the top cut. And you can see a pretty good diversity there. We had a Volibear and an Annie. Now, of course, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if Annie and Volibear ended up not getting matched up. Would that have created a different kind of scenario where a Volibear or an Annie could have actually ended up, well, Annie did make the top 4, but, a Volibear also being able to make the top 4 as well. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this ends up going, because, yeah, it seems like there's still a lot to be seen. Now, likewise as well, we're not going to be necessarily, at least outside of Volibear, taking a look at the Aurora deck. Now, the big reason of that is because it really seems like it is a one-fold kind of deck, in the sense of you're going to be taking a look at it, you're going to be saying, cool, do I end up hitting the Auroras? Yes, okay, cool, I'm probably going to win this game. There still is, of course, a chance that you are going to lose, don't get me wrong, but if I hit the Auroras, awesome, I'm probably going to win this game. If I don't hit the Auroras, then I'm probably going to lose this game. And while there were a great deal of decks, back even a Garen ended up making day 2, being in 18th place at the start of round 6 and 7. Pretty impressive, but still, even with all of that, still a lot to be desired there, and not necessarily a whole lot to break down outside of the Volibear deck, which is probably one of the most efficient versions for Aurora in this case. So, with that being said, it is going to be really interesting to be able to see how all of these decks ended up interacting, and probably the biggest surprising factor here was the fact that Annie was able to go ahead and make it into the top 4. That is a feat in and of itself, mainly due to the fact that we do consider Annie to be almost even a tier 3 deck in some corners of the interwebs, and so interesting to see how that unfolded. Now, of course, with that being said, none of this would be possible without what Jacob has put together. Also, with that, the great team of casters that we ended up having, not only just for the Riftlab Trials II, but for the duration of the entire clashes. I mean, that was over 2-month period of everyone coming together and casting this and making this come to life. I mean, Jacob had put hours upon hours of this, many late nights for him, mainly due to the fact of him, being over in Europe in this case and running this tournament late into the night. Even in the first Riftlab Trials, I think he was up until 5 or 6 in the morning. And even with the second Trials, he had a plane to catch right after the fact. And so there's a lot that he was trying to do. And he's like, I'm not getting any sleep today. So just, a huge shout out to Jacob and everything that he's been doing with this. It has been a passion project of his. And I mean, you get to look at all of the production value that he's been able to put into this. It is just absolutely amazing that a game that has not even come out yet in English is able to have as high of a production value as what you would be seeing over in like the China regionals, or even in just in esports in general. But it is because of the talent that Jacob has and the work that he was able to put into this. Especially just because of his profession, he's not able to profit off of any of this. So this quite literally is a passion project of his. So great job to him. Huge shout out. And he is even carrying this further out, as he is going to be starting to travel around to stores to be able to test these tournaments and all of that going on with the releases and things of that nature as well. So a lot of really exciting stuff. And he is just taking the bull by the horns and running with it. So thank you so much for being able to do that. You've brought together a really great community, and it's been so fun for me as well. Being able to get to know Counterfeit and Orbital really well, and then working with people people that I just otherwise wouldn't necessarily be able to, get involved with, which was just so fun to be able to see. Casting the finals with Casanova and the Blevins as well. Anu was just an absolutely great talent to be able to work with. Seeing all of their insight and what they are able to bring to these casts, I learned so much even as a caster myself on what they are able to bring to the table and the insights that they are able to have as well. I was absolutely blown away with what Casanova was able to do as well, and being able to, just bring a whole different dynamic to those finals. And I got to say, guys, if you haven't, and you probably know about them, but if you happen to not, go ahead and check out Turn Them Sideways. Just a really great channel out there for you guys. Give you a lot of great insights and a really fun podcast to really help you understand this game, where the meta is, and even just exciting news in general. Really great crew right there. As long as Blevin's computer doesn't catch on fire, we're in a good spot. Just really awesome to be able to see all of this come together like that. So, first deck that we are going to be taking a look at here is going to be Prismaticism's Kaisa. Now, this has been really interesting. Now, first and foremost, we've seen basically Prismaticism play every deck under the sun that is potentially able to be played in a tournament online. In this case, with being, he was able to go ahead and play Darius in one. He played Timo in another. He played even on top of that after. He just was able to bring a different deck every single time. Annie even he was able to go. If I remember correctly, he went 4-0 with Annie, or he went 3-1 with Annie, 4-0 with Timo. So just really great stuff right there. And this is the brew that he decided to bring, and he had a very difficult feat to try to go ahead and make it to the finals. First and foremost, we had an Ari deck that we are going to be taking a look at that ended up actually doing incredibly well against Prismaticism, taking one game, but of course Prismaticism was able to ultimately take it. And I mean, we can't discount, how great of a feat that was. Presto is an incredibly great player in these matchups and able to do just so much with this game. And so, just gotta say, absolutely blown away with what he was able to do as a whole. And so, but Prismaticism was able to go ahead and take this. Now, first and foremost, Targon's Peak, really good, obviously so, being able to ready 2 runes. Now, of course, this only is on Conquer. You're not going to be necessarily seeing that after. So you do have to conquer it every time to get the 2 readied runes. Now, with that being said as well, the Dreaming Tree, really great as well. The first time that you choose a friendly unit with a spell here, draw 1. So there's some really crazy stuff that you can get going with that. And then Reaver's Row to try to get some insurance on your units where, hey, you're going to go ahead and attack in. Cool. I have the choice now on if I'm going to pull back or continue to fight the fight. Now, with some of the footage that we are going to be taking a look at after this as well, is that Reaver's Row was a very interesting addition in this case and added a whole different dynamic of strategy. Mainly because when you defend here, you may move a friendly unit from here to base. Now, what that necessarily means is there comes a time where this card gets, or this battlefield gets activated, and then you get the choice. Now, with that being said, as soon as that choice is done away with, you say yes or no to that, then the rest of the turn will go about as normal. Well, this was really interesting because we saw both players ended up going and almost even trying to bluff it out somewhat on these battlefields. Really cool idea with that being like, we saw one where they sent in a weaker unit into the battlefield and then went ahead and said, hey, do you have it? I have 4 cards in hand. Do you want to take that chance and think that I don't have something to respond to? Or, because I think if I remember correctly, they were tapped out, and it's like, or in this case, I'm going to be finding out and having a tell on what you potentially have in your hand as well. So really interesting stuff with that. And a little bit of chicken was being played there as well. So that was just really cool to be able to see. Now, one of the more interesting things, and something that I really want to point out too, only one Kaisa here. Now, Kaisa can just be such a great card because, yes, it is able to come in accelerated. You are then going to be able to, as soon as you play it, go ahead and conquer a battlefield and draw a card off of it. Really great job on being able to refill your hand. And then, there's things that you can potentially do to try to protect it. and things of that nature, but you got to be so careful about maybe even juggling that because you don't want to necessarily lose only running one. So kind of a fun idea there, but really good job right there. 3 Stupefies, 3 Cleaves, 3 Hextech Rays, 2 Retreats, again giving that Kaisa or even Darius, things of that nature, the ability to go back to hand. A lot of really fun stuff to be able to go about doing that. And so this is going to be really interesting to see because Retreat is just such a good card. The fact that you can go ahead and play it not only as a reaction, but also you return a friendly unit to its owner's hand, and its owner channels 1 rune exhausted, and it only costs 1. So it's not a huge setback. Now, of course, that can also be a little bit confusing with your opponent. Is it going to be a Hextech Ray when you only have 1 rune that is at the ready, or is it going to be a retreat? And that alone can deviate on your opponent maybe deciding to attack in or not. Now, with that being said, Retreat is just such a good card because, yeah, you're going to be able to play it again. You're bringing something back to hand that you definitely don't want to lose in this case. And that's, again, going to be, the Darius, Thousand Tail Watcher, or Kaisa in this case. It's really great stuff here. Howdy Poro, Ravenbloom Student, Falling Star. One of the best cards in this game right now is Falling Star. Smokescreen to really help with some very difficult situations on getting Might down for Might. That is a big deal. Watchful Sentry for card draw, Lecturing Yordle for card draw, Void Seeker really good, and Noxus Hopeful, just again to go wide really fast. 3 Darius and 2,000 Tail Watchers. Now, the side deck is going to be really interesting, and you're seeing a lot more of Icathian Rain instead of Unchecked Power, which is really interesting, because Unchecked Power can end up almost really slowing you down because there's nothing necessarily that you can do after the play. And the field normally, I say normally because there of course always is exceptions here, isn't going to be so wide that you need more of a, unchecked power than Icathian Rain. So there's a little bit of balancing there with that, and so Icathian Rain can be really good for that. Then I also love Sprite Mother. Being able to just really go aggressive, especially in a mirror match, can be really good where battlefields open up and then you're just like, okay, cool, let's go Sprite Mother and gain a point. So yeah, and Thousand Tail Watcher is going to be a really great add-on with that as well. Just to really be able, once you clear the board, to go ahead and then just overrun it the next turn, because that's going to be really difficult for people to go ahead and come back from. And I gotta say, I wasn't necessarily sure about Time Warp when things first started, but this is something that is really interesting to go ahead and add. It feels like it's a really high cost. Now, of course, that cost is highly mitigated with, Kaisa's ability to be able to at least remove 1 power cost in this case, where you only have to recycle 3. That's pretty awesome, but even still, that is a lot. But you play it when you have the win con ready to go, so that you can really just secure the game with Time Warp. Just really great card right there. You got to see Prismaticism go ahead and use it and get the win. That made a big difference, whereas his opponent wasn't necessarily running that kind of deck list. So really surprising there. We'll go ahead and also show the deck list of the opponent right now and see how that ended up going, because it's really interesting to see how his build ended up differing in some ways. And unfortunately, in Game 3, just didn't necessarily have the units in hand to be able to respond back to everything that Prismaticism was throwing at them. The games are so great to be able to see. They are on Riftlab's channel as well, so go ahead and check those out. Now, of course, we're only going to be highlighting them, not playing all of them. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how all 3 of those played out. But here's the big thing. If you want to watch a master playing this game, watch Prismaticism and the choices that he has made. I say that because there's a lot of times in particular, I play Kaisa. I've played probably about 25, 30 games with Kaisa, which still is not a lot at all. But I've been playing a lot of other decks as well. Teemo, Darius, Yi, all those, just to really get a good feel for the entire meta as a whole. And so with that, it was really interesting, though, because there are times where I'm looking at the board state, I see the cards that are in hand, and I'm like, it would be really cool if you went about this, 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 and this. And that was with me even knowing what was in the other player's hand as well. But this is what was really interesting, is that pretty much every single time that I would say, I think we need to go about this situation, this route with Kaisa to be able to get ahead. and Prismaticism would go ahead and play something even completely different, and it would work out for the better. One of the best things that you can do as a competitor, someone who is wanting to get better at this game, is watching someone like Prismaticism and figure out what kind of game they play and why that makes them the best of the best. He has gone ahead and proven that he is pretty much the best player in online Riftbound, and that is a big feat to have. He was able to get second in the first trials. He was able to top in pretty much every single one of the well, he didn't necessarily top, but he did really well. I think he got first in 3 of the 4, if I remember correctly. Just a really good job with all of that. And then we got to see a lot of his gameplay, not only over those clashes, but also in these finals as well. It is just so cool to be able to see what he was able to do in this case. That was awesome. Take a look at his gameplay, take a look at the footage, and study it. You are going to become a better Riftbound player by even just watching, even if you're not playing Kaisa. That's perfectly fine. But take a look at like his mindsets and what he's going into. I wish we could have heard the thoughts of Prismaticism in this case, but still, he has done an absolutely great job at understanding this game at an entirely different level. That's not to discount at all what his competitor was able to do in the finals as well. His competitor is an incredibly skilled player and was able to do so much to be able to get to that point. That is 7 rounds, and then going into the top 10 and playing 3 more rounds, third round being the finals, of course, with that. And then even being able to take a game from Prismaticism. And of course, I do feel like the deck did fall a little bit short for Prismaticism's opponent in the finals. You know, just again, he ran out of units in this case. And Prismaticism was able to just continually bombard his opponent with spells and threats. Just galore. I mean, it was insane. And was able to just do so well with that. So, I mean, he is his competitor, his opponent is just so good at the game as well. But Prismaticism also takes it to the next level. That's not to say that he can't beat. He has been beat, but he has been able to also take something like Annie into a clash and be able to go 3-1. He was also able to go ahead and take Chemo, something that people didn't necessarily think was able to do much, and then be able to 4-0 his opponent. And I mean, again and again, he's been able to just turn heads and fascinate us with everything. So with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and cut over to some footage of Prismaticism in the finals, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the other deck list.
Darius going to be the play for Wasian Swag here. Just going to dump this out. Does have the one floating for the Ray, but not many good Ray targets. Even casting it into the Pouty Poro feels a bit rough, actually having to pay the power cost, but you will do it in a pinch. I'm curious if we do start to see these Falling Stars deployed from the side of Priz, because he wants to ramp up into this Time Warp and to these Dariuses. But these will deramp if he tries to cast them on the same turn, and yet it does feel like we're starting to get to the point where it feels pretty nice to send those out.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of really big threats on the board that you do want to hit out. The last thing that you want, especially, I mean, you're still, of course, going, no, actually, you have enough to where next turn Thousand Tail Watcher could be coming in from Wasian Swag at this point. And it's like, well, I have the double Falling Star in hand. I could take out the Kaisa. I could take out the Darius. And then even at that point, I would be sitting so much better being able to not only go up 2 points 5-4 as Prismaticism, but also not giving the Thousand Tail as much power as you would if you had those 2 units still out and ready to be used.
You can get a clean clear here with double Falling Star or Stupefy, right? With Darius then taking the Zon Warrens. You go Falling Star, Stupefy, Falling Star. Yeah, no, it would clear out the entire board, which seems pretty good. I mean, it does deramp you quite a bit, but not a bad spot to be in.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting call out, right? Because you can, but should you? And that is the answer is not clear, right? The answer is really not clear. It feels like it could be completely fine. It could work. You still have these Dariuses to back up. You've got this Lecturing Yordle. You're deramping, but you're deramping, what, 3? That's fine. I think that's okay. You still have plenty of resources going forward. The Time Warp starts to rot a little bit if you deramp 3 here, but you probably want the Time Warp in about 3 turns time, and you can be back to that even with deramping 3. So just going to start with the swing in onto Kaisa, and we'll see from there. This does make sense, though, because you want to ready and move back the Darius.
Yep, exactly.
Regardless of what this play is.
Yep, and you even have enough resources left over to play a Yordle as well, which feels pretty decent.
Yeah, and likewise, though, the thing to also keep in mind is that this is 2 days of competition. These competitors have been playing, 4 rounds now at this point. That is a lot of gameplay on day 2 as well. And so it's okay to take that step back, take a little bit more time, because brain fog does happen the longer that you play in these tournaments. And so it's like, I need to double check these moves, these turns, and really calculate this out so that I can do the best play possible, especially when there is so much on the line when you've made it to the finals.
Instead of trying to go for the board clear, Riz goes for the biggest development turn, using the information gained from the Zon Warrens to then inform the rest of the turn, realizing, okay, I could cast these Falling Stars and deramp a bunch, or I can fully develop a huge board into Time Warp mana on the following turn.
Yeah, I mean, probably a much better play than the one I lined up. I do think that the play I suggested is still fine, but these are the types of things where it's like Riftbound is not a cut and dry, straightforward game. And even a deck that is very powerful and has seen a lot of results across a wide variety of players, there's a lot of different decisions to be made in pretty much any point in the game, and you can be led to a very different conclusion based on the information you presented, and the different choices you make can lead to a different conclusion, as we're seeing here. Prismet setting themselves up very nicely to potentially finish this game.
Yeah, and that's another thing is, like, I've been playing Kaisa, I've been hopping around some decks, but I've locked in on Kaisa a lot lately, and there's still, after even playing 25, 30 games with this legend, there's a time where even I'm watching Prismatic's and I'm like, oh, that's really smart. And it's like, cool, now I can apply that to my own game as well. There is such a different dynamic with the battlefields in play, with just everything that can come into the strategy of Riftbound, and I love to see how this goes.
I think the consideration here from Weijin, 8 cards in the trash, Mundo in hand, control of a battlefield. Do you just attempt to hold? You'd still have to take the Reaver's Row to get ahead on points, but from there you would have the lead and could attempt to win with a Giga Stack Mundo. Problem being, Priz's board is no slouch.
No. Priz's board is no slouch, and Giga stacking a board is really quite bad to Watcher, as it always is.
Of course. Less bad when it's Mundo, but still bad. Less
bad when it's Mundo, for sure. Still not great. And if you're Giga stacking, if you're only playing the Mundo, I mean, how big is Mundo going to be? 13, right? He's base 5?
Yes.
Yeah, so he'd be 13 when we played him.
Base 6.
You could... Yeah, base 6, sorry. Base 14. Or not base 14. He'd be 14 after. Yeah, he's base 14. Potentially up to 15 with the Hextech Ray. I mean, you're probably able to hold for a turn or two, but again, then it's... Are you able to take the Reavers? Are you able to, like, is that actually a winning line? I mean, these are the things that Weijin Swag I would imagine, is currently debating right now, going through these plays, even though there's not a ton of cards in hand. A lot of important decisions to be made.
And Blev, you called out the Watcher, and it is, 15 on Mundo. We look at the board that Priz already has. Watcher does start to just beat it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? It starts to beat Mundo anyway, even though it's very strong. And we are going to see that stack on Reaver's Row. This allows you to react if it is something like Watcher, and at least maybe salvage the Mundo, and then set up to go Watcher plus Mundo to score the last 2 points. And I think that's what Weijin Swag is looking for, right? As you see this Watcher in hand for Weijin, this is ideal. Your next turn, you either conquer or hold this because you have the Mundo, and then you try and conquer with your Watcher on the other side, or things go bad and Priz is able to conquer your Reaver's Row, but you can bounce back the Mundo and send it in again once you've Watchered. And that is what he's considered and decided is the best line, and I like this line quite a bit. I do think Priz has game with Time Warp here, and he just has to do all the math and find the precise line. But this is a tapped out Kaisa, except for one rune. You can cover all those options. Just has to do the math.
Yep. Stupefy and Ray. Retreat doesn't do anything. So it's how do you beat both of those cards? And it's certainly there. And you have a lot of time to, you'll have that extra turn to, even if you just want to chip away at the Mundo board, like you've got some time if you can do it to actually win with the Time Warp.
Yep.
Double cleave. And there's the warp as well. That's going to be a big difference maker because that's going to immediately, or after he ends his turn, going to start another turn for him. So he's going to be able to then go up to 7 with that, pull it back. And I mean, this is looking really good right now for Prismaticism.
Double cleave just readies this. It's still just the one Ray from the side of Wasian Swag, which you can play around with these cleaves to try and make sure that all of your 2s are out of range of Ray. Yep. So that you don't lose any might. Double cleave, you still have the Falling Stars to be played, the Stupefy, another Darius. There's so many ways to get above this 23 might. Plus, we'll say that Priz is specifically playing around Hextech Ray, because why not, right? 23 plus the 3 damage.
Yep.
You can always get around this with this board, unless, I don't want to do all of the math here, but I'm pretty confident you can.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 17 just on board with a Darius proc. Right. Not even factoring in
2 cleaves, another Darius. Like, we're it's not even remotely close.
It's not really close to close. Yeah.
But you still want to be careful because you're like, there's still that chance. I want to double check everything to be safe.
Yeah.
But we got it.
he should play around the Hextech Rays by playing the cleaves on the 2 might units, right?
Just saying I don't care.
I don't know if it matters, but I am saying that's the only way that there's even any might available in Wasian Swag's hand is if you can clear away one of these. It shouldn't matter whatsoever. That's going to be Priz stacking it up,
Darius's,
giving us a game 3 against Wasian Swag, giving us a game 3 for this grand finals, and putting all the marbles on the line for a single Kaisamir.
And I mean, this is where it can be anyone's game. You've seen both these competitors be able to play. You've seen what they're able to do. Each have been able to take a game apiece in this grand finals. And we are about to go into game number 3. But at that same time, we've seen just how powerful Time Warp can be.
Looks like Wasian just wanting to do the math for himself, make sure that this game is over. There's, he's thinking about the Hextech Ray. Okay, Hextech Ray is basically +3 for his side, -2 for opponent's side.
Yeah, it's... Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well,
you get rid of 2, or it's +3 total for your side.
Yep.
Which is not enough.
No, I don't think so.
There's the scoop.
Yep, there's a scoop. I gotta say, I would not choose ever to have Kaisa mirror match as the finals, and I want to see other decks perform. Being here in the Kaisa mirror match finals, I'm low key kind of enjoying it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm liking the back and forth. There's subtle plays that can make huge differences here. I mean, we saw...
So next, of course, on the docket is going to be Presto's Ari. Now, this is a really cool build, but this is a difficult build to have to pilot. Because I say that, this is the hard part, is that you are going to be finding yourself where if you make a mistake, small or large, you are going to be automatically falling behind and almost burying your own grave, or digging your own grave. And so it can be very difficult to try to juggle around all the different lines. And I mean, Presto is the guy to be able to do that. And he was able to prove time and time again why he was able to do so successfully. This is really interesting. Now, of course, Ari's ability, first and foremost, is a really good ability, being able to give -1 might this turn to a minimum of 1 when an enemy unit attacks the battlefield you control. That's awesome. And so then you have a ton of support with that. You have, when you hold here, draw 1, really good. Being able to refill, Dreaming Tree, whenever you choose a friendly unit here, draw 1, really good. And War Camp to be giving +1 to anything and everything that is in that battlefield. With that being said, Ari is really interesting of a choice as well. When I hold, you score 1 point. And so you got to kind of figure out when the best chance is for you to go ahead and play this Ari. And that's going to be a very difficult thing to try to figure out. But still, really fun stuff to be able to do, because if you're able to get that off, you can just take the game incredibly fast. When you are going against an Aurora deck, well, cool. Come turn 3, I'm just going to go ahead and play Ari into a battlefield and try to get those extra points and get things moving that way. Really fun stuff right there. Stupefy, Defy, Unguard, 3 Retreat, 2 Charms, which is really interesting. I think Charm is just such a great card. Best in Master Yi, of course, but still in Ari, you are going to be able to have threats that you want to take care of, units that opponents think are safe in their base. You're just like, look, and move them into the battlefield, and now they have to answer. This thing to do, of course, with that is when your opponent just has no runes to be able to use, and you're like, cool, well, they have literally 0 response if I charm. Boom. Really makes a big difference there. Stalwart Poro to add a shield, Ravenbloom Student to add +1 per spell played as well. Discipline for card draw and adding +2. Clockwork Keeper to draw a card if you are in trouble. Find your center to ramp and also draw a card. Also, just the fact that this costs 1 if your opponent is scores within 3 points of victory. Cool. Now, this is a different card and not one that we haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of play. First off, it has vision, that when you play me, you look at the top card of your main deck and you can recycle it. And then you also have shield. The nicest part about this as well is that you can go ahead and just play it outright. You don't have to recycle anything in this case, and also just having a shield is really good. So you can go ahead and directly protect your Ari in this case that you go ahead and have in a battlefield. And Dual Colossus is just going to be right there ready to fight with you, and will be able to take a good brunt of the force right there, needing 6 to get over it as well. So there's really good stuff right there. Now, Tasty Faithful is something that we've been seeing a lot more play of. I mean, we saw in the China Regional, especially in the Master Yi decks, that was when it really started in the last regionals of China. That was when that was really coming into the meta right there. And it's just been such a good card. Yes, you don't have to, there's 0 power cost here. At that 6, that kind of sucks. But still, it has such a good ability that it channels 2 runes, exhausted, and draw 1 when it dies. That is just so good. And the fact that it can come in accelerated, and it's different than the Thousand Tail Watcher because you just have to pay 1 more and recycle 1. Whereas with Thousand Tail Watcher, you have to do the same thing, but you have to recycle 2, and that 2 can make a really big difference. Yes, Thousand Tail Watcher, you are getting such a great ability, minusing 3, but even still, Tasty Faithful, man, just when you see those 2 runes pop down and you get to draw a card, you're just like, I don't want to kill this unit because that is such a good ability. And it just feels like that. Even after you take out a 6 might unit, your opponent is still getting ahead. Tasty Faithful, such a good game, or such a great card. Now, 3 Time Warps as well. You do got to be a little bit careful with that just because you can bombard your hand. I mean, you have 9 cards that are very in-game. That's the scary part. So, if you have the Time Warp going and you draw 2 Time Warps at the beginning of your hand, that really sucks. And you don't have necessarily anything that discards and draws a card as a battlefield in this case. So if you do end up clogging up your hand, that can be where this deck really can struggle. But still, the sideboard is really good as well. Again, the aggro, Wind Wall to really stop some dangerous stuff. Even Time Warp can be stopped with Wind Wall. I still don't agree with the artwork of it. Dumb, but whatever. With that being said, though, this was an interesting Mage Seeker Warden. We haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of play with this. But while I'm at a battlefield, opponents can only play units to their base, which is okay, cool, that's awesome. And when I'm at a battlefield, spells and abilities can't ready enemy units here. So just something to really slow down. Again, it is a very situational card, but that's why it's in the side deck. And having two, yes, it is a 6 and 1 power cost in this case. That's a lot, but still, the fact of the matter is that if this is played correctly, you are able to really slow down your opponent, and that's what Ari thrives on. You can go ahead and be like, cool, I see what you're able to do. I'm going to slow you down a little bit. I'm going to control the board state a bit more. You think that your unit is safe? Nope, I take it. Oh, you think you're going to destroy me with your Void Seeker? Nope, discipline. I now gain 2 and draw 1. Ari does a really great job at being able to just control the game. You're in control the entire time, but it's only when that your opponent goes ahead and gets ahead and is able to almost outplay you, or you just make a really big mistake, that Ari can really begin to fall short. You've got to be so calculated in how you play Ari, and Presto was able to do so very well. And I mean, you're going to see in this gameplay right here how great he's able to do as Ari.
Rough thought to think about, and I appreciate that. I'm glad I'm glad I brought up a good point. I'm always happy about that one, but it was just kind of crossing my mind. And right now, maybe even Presto is sitting there going, "Dang, I didn't expect to meet such a creature haul here." 5 currently in pocket. Kejias also kind of wondering exactly what they want to play down. They go ahead and set 1 soldier over there on that Dreaming Tree. It is going to be dropped a little bit in power, and you know there's going to be at least 1 or 2 other spells and reactions in hand for Presto, so you are just kind of waiting and biding your time. You're almost testing the waters right now in this battlefield.
Yeah, and I think he wants to see what is going to be played here. Presto does go for the retreat. I think that is the correct play here. Stupefy is not really giving him much value, whereas you get the drop and you channel a rune exhausted. There's the Unguard. A little bit late. Unfortunately, Presto is fully tapped out, but he is on Ariva's row with his student, so he can protect that. The Unguard will definitely come into play next turn, I think. He will go up to 11 runes, which is huge for a pushback. Being on 4 points means he could then potentially take that up to 6. We're going to see now whether Kejias decides to really stack these battlefields with these units. That'll probably be a mistake if he does play into the Watcher, but he is going to push and try and trade here.
Well, see, I think this is where it gets really cool to sort of break down why Time Warp is successful. Another reason, right? When you combine the double bind of my opponent's at 4 points, Presto's at 4, and if Presto goes up to 6, we run the risk of losing straight up to Time Warp and a double hold, right? In order to counter that, we must commit our units to the battlefield to push back something like the Ravenbloom, to push back something like the Clockwork Keeper, because we cannot have Presto get to 6. And when we commit our units to the battlefield, that suddenly unlocks a window where Presto gets to pivot and say, well, here's my Fox. What are you going to do about it, right? I think also like playing the Chosen Champion into base this turn is a big indicator that we have some sort of Time Warp shenanigans in the deck and also in the hand, more importantly. It is open deck list, so we do know that Time Warp is available for day 2 at least. But specifically playing Ari this past turn it would set off red flags in my mind that there's a Time Warp coming down the turn next or the turn after.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, your opponent is going to be thinking about that from Presto's perspective. But I wonder from Kejias' perspective, he also has to think about all the other spells as well. And he also has to consider the Watcher. So with that in mind, there's quite a lot of units and spells that he has to consider when playing ahead. So I'd be really curious how he plays this. And it's now over to Presto. Let's see how he pushes this turn.
So it is going to be that final clash as well. It feels like Keji is currently on 6, meaning if Dreaming Tree and the rest of what Presto has in hand isn't able to yield extra cards that you want to utilize here, Presto's in for a little bit of a challenge. You know you have to burn some of these units that you currently have out in your base. You need to have a little bit more oomph. And considering there's maybe 1 or 2 spells behind, you have the Void Seeker as well as that smoke screen. You know you're in for a rough one. There is going to be an exchange here being given, because if you lose that 4 might with a smoke screen, all of a sudden that Ari is going to be in for a rough turn. All of a sudden, that extra on the back end, you could lose that momentum that we have constantly talked about when it comes to trying to take over this game. Good news is, though, for Presto, you have amassed 11 runes untapped right now that you can expend across the board if you wish to get a little bit fancy. And it is going to be that on guard to buff up here and give a little bit more credence to this battle outcoming.
Yeah, I
But
guess
there's the
I'm
tap.
kind of curious this turn. Are you actually going to play Time Warp or not? And it sounds like Presto is actually just playing it the way that I would like to play it as well, which is bide your time and find a more opportune spot. Don't force it or jam it just because you have it in your hand and you can play it. Guarantee that you can actually extract the value out of Time Warp. Otherwise, the card's really just not doing anything. Taking an extra turn, drawing an extra card doesn't matter unless there's like an ability that you can or an effect that you can juice out of the card, whether it's holding a point or maybe getting to develop your units in a advantageous combat or something like that.
Yeah, I think what Presto is wanting to do here is try and avoid using more than those 10 runes, which he's probably realized now with the smoke screen coming out that he's not going to be able to. He could still try and continuously trade here and try and get that Ari into the Reaver's Row, putting him in at 5, using the Time Warp, going to 7, and then next turn conquering the next battlefield with a Watcher. Now, I'm not sure without doing some maths if he could get away with this because there is that Void Seeker to stop one of those units trading. I think he's going to have to accept that this isn't going to work out and play around with it, but I could be wrong. He might be able to do it. If he pushes these 2 units in, he'll have 5 might. The Void Seeker will take it out, but then the Ari could trade. So it will be interesting how he plays this out now.
Something that I'm also trying to figure out here is if we were going to play Time Warp this turn, we definitely should have played it before we moved into combat with the Raven Blooms. So
Yep.
I guess that might be like the big announcement to Kejius and the viewers and us that there isn't really an intention to Time Warp this turn. Otherwise, you'd want the extra might, right? I guess
No, I think he still. Sorry to interrupt you. I think he still can do it here because if he takes the Void Seeker to kill the Poro, this is his only opportunity to get the action. So the Ari can now move in, and then he can Time Warp, and then he'll get 2 points instead of 1.
That's so cool. You're right, because the showdown doesn't allow you to target the Ari here off of Void Seeker, and moving Ari into the Reaver's Row once you've already conquered it doesn't trigger a showdown. So this is brilliant sequencing here by Presto. Take notes. Take notes. Very good.
I'm telling you when I say this that the players have brains larger than any of us a lot of the time, and yet it's so cool watching it come to fruition here. And there's going to be the Time Warp. You guys were talking about it. There's the tap and a half. Bring out the big guns. Get another turn. Drop off 4 runes. And that's a hefty push up Presto. Saying, okay, let's tie things up. Bring out the Watcher. Let's go ham. Bye-bye to more. And Presto takes it home.
Yeah, he did exactly what I thought he would, and he played it perfectly. Well done to Presto. He completely figured out his sequence of play, and yeah, smashed it.
Now, we got excited for Volley Bear right here and right now. Very interesting stuff. Sigil of the Storm. Conquer here, recycle one of your runes. Windswept Hillock, really good card for ganking, which is insane with Volley Bear and Auroras. And then Candlelit Sanctum to be able to look at the top 2 cards and either recycle them or just put them back on the top in any order. Now, Volley Bear, I'm still at the debate on if Misfortune is the better Aurora deck or Volley Bear is. The reason why I would say maybe Misfortune would be only due to the fact of one of the cards that they can hit allows you to summon back from the trash a unit that has already gone the way of the earth. That's really good. But Volley Bear still has his legend ability that when you play a mighty unit, you may exhaust me to channel 1 rune exhausted. So even if you happen to miss your ramp, you don't get your mobilizers, you don't get your Catalyst of Aeons. I mean, heck, you're only running 1. You're able to then just go ahead and still hit the ground and just do amazing things because every unit that you play is either replacing the power cost or just getting you closer to being able to play the Auroras. Now, at first, though, you take a look and you're like, wait, why the crap is Lee Sin here? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And this was a debate that we had at the beginning of the round when we were casting this match. And I was like, well, the biggest thing is, one, it's mighty, and two, it doesn't have a power cost. You don't have to recycle a rune. And so it's like that's just really good. And if you so choose, you can and go ahead and play to accelerate him. But otherwise, he's just a 6 might that automatically channels you a rune exhausted so that you can move more quickly. And as we got to see just what Lee Sin was also able to do, it just more and more made us a believer of he was a really good add-on in this deck. Now, Primal Strength is just going to be really good in that case. Volibear is just so scary, being a deflect 2, and also when I attack, I deal 5 damage as I so choose. Just really good right there. Void Seeker for spell removal. Sky Splitter again. Get excited. Lots of removal right there. Dead Bloom Predator to go ahead and play onto occupied battlefields and immediately attack there. Misfortune can even be a really good card. I see why some people aren't necessarily a believer in like Misfortune needing to be included. I really like Misfortune being included only because, one, she can be played as an accelerated unit. But not only that, if you already have her out, you can go ahead and move her into a battlefield or back to base for that matter and ready up a unit. So you can go ahead and if you have something big in hand that you need to get rid of and whatnot out onto the battlefield, well, cool. Misfortune can go ahead and just move right after you play that card, and it's readied, and it can make a really big impact into this game. Now, you take a look at this deck, and you're just like, dude, this deck is just all over the place. What is it even, trying to... I get what it's trying to do, but it just feels like it's not your average Aurora deck. And this is almost going back to the beginning of the end of the reveal season with these deck lists. This was really what Volibear started to do at the beginning of meta, trying to be finalized or trying to be discovered is a good way of putting it. Now, of course, you do normally play a little bit more of Catalyst of Aeons, but again, it's like I almost want to switch this a little bit because it almost feels more important to have Catalyst of Aeons than Mobilize. I would go 1 M3 instead. But even still, I mean, you saw what it was able to do. Now, of course, this deck was a little bit of an outlier because while we were casting it, the dude had the God Hand. He did. he was able to, in both games, draw double Auroras, draw the ramp that he needed, and be able to get Auroras out on turn 3 and just was able to run the game. Now, the player playing Master Yi was able to just do so well against it. It was was it Master Yi or was it Kaiser? Something like that. Sorry about that. They got really close. They got to 7 points, but again, that final point that you need can be so difficult to get when going against Auroras, which is what makes it so good. Not only that, this deck isn't necessarily relying on Auroras to be the win con. It's like, yes, I get it. It's really nice when Auroras hit, and it makes this deck so much more devastating. But if it doesn't hit, I'm going to still be able to do stuff. I'm going to still be able to go ahead and control the battlefield, slowing you down a little bit. I'm going to still be able to get early units out. Now, the risk with that is that when Auroras does come out, then you are going to be finding yourself maybe not hitting the most optimal unit that you would like to get out onto the battlefield. But that's perfectly fine because that's still giving you more of a chance to go ahead and win this game. Likewise, you got Sabotage to be able to really hurt your Kaisa opponent. Stormbringer, which is really good as well. And Anivia, which can go ahead and deal 3 damage to all enemy units here when I attack. Now, of course, that's going to be more for your Victors, for your Darius, things of that nature. That is a card that can really slow down your opponent. Not only that, 8 might. Really scary right there. Now, Stormbringer is just a really good card as well. You choose a friendly unit in your base, deal damage equal to its might to all enemy units at a battlefield, then move your unit there. So, just a really strong card. Now, of course, you are going to be recycling 2 in that case, but still, that can be a very big game changer, especially when you might be moving a little bit slower. Your opponent's going to get closer and closer to winning the game, and then you just go ahead and take really great stuff to be able to get back into the game, because if you do end up missing maybe a turn or 2 from Volibear, that can really affect you and really slow you down in that case. So you just got to be so careful about how you go about that. And so with that, though, Volibear, really fun. We are going to be looking at, of course, the insane game here where Volibear was able to just be absolutely nuts in the gameplay. Really cool to see this deck, and I can't wait to see what is coming next with this build.
Ability in the form of Sigil of the Storm for the Kaisa deck, and we'll see how if that like truly trips up her in this matchup while we're able to ramp with the Volibear ability on the other side.
And ramp you
Yeah, 'cause
will
right-
double Auroras over there too. Holy.
Yeah, and that's going to be absolutely scary to do. And I mean, at the same time, you see that, you know, we have 2,000 tail watchers on the other side. Nothing small to get out onto the battlefield to at least try to get some points. This could be very detrimental here, but we're still able to play a Kaisa. We're going to be able to draw a card off of that as well. But I mean, we're seeing a lot of duplicates here.
Oh, goodness.
It's a lot of fun duplicates. Oh my, what is going on here? You can see the smiles on both. Look at Game Slayer, dude smiling ear to ear at this point. He is chilling on turn, saying, yo, look at what I got on the top deck, baby. Let's go breathe some fire.
Catrigan coming in a 9 might is actually just so insane here on turn 3 with the Aurora. I feel like, keep in mind, this Catalyst was a 1-of, by the way, right? So the fact that we had it for our second turn is like all the stars are aligning in the worst possible way here for the Kaisa player, which is a good or bad thing depending on how you feel about the champion. But yeah, this is terrifying here because you would want to have at least a couple more points from the Kaisa side. You do not, so good luck.
I do. I'm scared. I am so scared right now. Look at this. Look at this. Dude, Game Slayer is chilling like a villain right now. And here's the worst part. We saw this earlier in the fact that Auroras really do need to get off to a great start. And we talked about when it comes to, I believe it was Mobilize plus Aeons, this creates a generation. Like, this is the golden hand to start. And it's occurring yet again. All of a sudden, that 9 jumps to 17. And what we saw for Lusco possibly being that that clear out chance of the Kirigan, it's not going to happen here.
Well, this is the difficult part as well, because when we're looking at, especially for game 1, there is not really any answers to get over all of this might that is becoming out. You think 1 dazzling Aurora is going to be difficult to be with. Well, try 2 on turn 4. Can you even come back from this?
We are 3.5 minutes in, guys. We are only 3.5 minutes in. This is painful, to say the least, to watch. There comes a couple missiles headed over to the Void Gate. How hard do you want to slam this? Alright, Darius is there. What more
4 damage on the Cadragon.
Yeah. Okay. Bring out a little extra in the bank there. Sending out the Hextech Ray.
Wow, this is actually...
So that is good.
Ooh. Is it able to clear?
No, it shouldn't be able to. I think the Darius will die here to the leftover Deadbloom, because you have, what, 17 on one side, and then... what, you had 4... Oh, and then there's a cleave too, okay.
Oh. So that's what you're waiting for. I mean, even it looks like Game Slayer is also doing the same. This is a lot thrown here. It feels like Lusco is kind of going for a Hail Mary all of a sudden at the start, but it's answered back very, very nicely done by a little bit of that Sky Splitter, saying, okay, no, we're going to deal 5, and at least we take the Darius down with this. Nice rotational play from both the players.
Yeah, and still, you're able to bounce back to... with the Kaisa coming in and being able to draw their cards well. I mean, that card draw is going to be king for this Kaisa to get the answers needed to deal with this Folly Bear.
And now we wait. And now we silently pray. In comes another Void Seeker off the rip. And it's Game Slayer just checking around. Again, you can hunt all day long. You got the Aurora to play for. You go ahead and draw a little bit of angry shouting Narm, making him known with the primal strength. Ready to roll here, and Lusco's sitting with some high cost cards, but only 6 runes here. I feel like Lusco is drawing into more of a bad hand at the end of the day.
What's also interesting to me is that the last turn we kind of had the opportunity to conquer Sigil of the Storm, and then, you know, given that we have double Thousand Eye Watcher in hand, we really just can't afford to move into that battlefield. So kind of seeing the impact here of how Sigil of the Storm might actively be generating you more like points than something like Aspirin's Climb, right? Aspirin's Climb gives you 1 point. Here, Sigil of the Storm has stopped one conquer already. So just keep a tally of that in the back of your head. Like, which one is being, you know, more effective in terms of slowing down the race?
I like that call here. Silent, how you feeling about this one? Void Gate
Well,
still being on the side.
He's still finding the answers needed now. Of course, unfortunately, not necessarily the units to respond with all this removal as well, but still doing a great job at taking care of the threats. The mayor I have right now is he found a devastating volley bear through the Aurora Elect 2, meaning that anytime that you target it, you are going to have to recycle 2 in order to successfully target it. So that can be just a huge, detriment to Kaisa here on trying to have such a big threat.
Even tossing in a little bit of that relentless storm behind. We saw that getting triggered earlier as well, and this comes what almost feels like that flood. And we mentioned some of those earlier units as well. The Misfortune kind of tagged in at a 5/5, just extra units to play with. Lusco does have some falling stars, but I mean, these are just kind of the spells to throw. We're still waiting. As you mentioned, the Watchers in hand. You have a little bit of a soldier in the background, but kind of feels a little bit out of the realm. The Nox is hopeful. Might be hoping for a game 1 victory, but this might be moving on to game 2 already. Answer about. Anchor to the back as well. Is it going to be useful enough?
Yeah, and that's going to be the biggest thing here. It's like, are you going to be able to get over this wall that is being built? And I mean, it feels like that Gameslayer is being very careful also about how to go about. I don't want to necessarily overextend max. You don't know, like how we know the deck lists in particular, so you don't know if they're putting in any, certain board wipes or things of that nature with like power, things like that. And so it's like, do I want to overextend? Because if I do, here we go. Sins coming right into the battle.
Yeah, what's interesting is that we're putting the Lee Sins in the base here as opposed to in either the Sigil or the Void Gate. And I think this is Gameslayer kind of just giving the nod to something like Thousand Eye Watcher, where if you clump up on the battlefields, you may risk something sort of crazy happening. And if you leave him in base here, I think it's fine. Just play it slowly. At this point, you have double Dazzling Aurora. It's your game to lose, so don't make mistakes. Just, have all the cards that they could possibly have, cover the range, and you should be good to go.
Yeah, I mean, you are holding up very, very well. I mean, Lusco even is still sitting there going, okay, I gotta find some options here. Is gonna toss out one of those Watchers and say, okay, I still have 2 in hand, by the way, top deck. Another, all 3 actually in hand right now. But that's your entire move, and it feels kind of bad at the moment. You're gonna go ahead and drop a Falling Star in there just to try and clear out that Misfortune, which you will be able to. But still, Gameslayer has now bumped up to a +2 option. Might be moving to a +3 here in just a bit. There it is. So Gameslayer's in a really good position to go ahead and take this over. And if you flip the Auroras as well, all of a sudden your battlefield becomes even more cluttered. But Gameslayer's still like, I gotta be careful, just like you both called. Let's be careful. Let's be respectful of what can come out here.
Yeah, because the big thing here is 7 cards in hand for the Kaisa player. That is a lot of mystery here, but it looks like, especially after that turn, you are going to be seeing now that, if he didn't play the unchecked power, now I might be able to be okay on Breaker. I think I have the knowledge that I have it safe to now reinforce my battlefield and go win.
Clean shot at that finish. And honestly, if we're here on the desk watching, that's pretty much it. Well done to Gameslayer. Got the perfect start to the game. Ran it all the way through. Poor Lusco was sitting there like, dang, I couldn't have done much, but maybe my side deck is able to help me out.
Swift did a really good job with set. Had a very difficult road to be able to get into the top cut here. And was almost able to even take it. But, Kaisa just was able to be a little bit stronger in this case. And unfortunately, Swift fell short. But still, Set is a deck that you just cannot ignore. It has the ability to go ahead and get really big really fast and just devastate your opponent. And even when you think that you're going to be able to go ahead and take out a unit, you can't because, Set's legend ability is just going to bring it back to base. Now, again, you do have the juggling act that you need to perform where you are going to be seeing, how many cards or how many runes can you go ahead and recycle before you really set yourself behind because of how all of that is going about.
really difficult right there, but still. Grove of the Godwillow, really interesting deck, being able to hold here and draw a card. And when you hold, man, wow, it can be a game changer, especially because Set seems to have a little bit of an issue with drawing cards. He doesn't have a lot of utility to be able to draw cards. Ganking, really big, especially with your main set that you are going to be running. And then Monastery of Hirana. When you conquer here, you may spend a buff to draw one. I love this battlefield, mainly due to the fact that your opponent, unless in a mirror match, is not going to be able to necessarily utilize that. There's very few things that will go ahead and buff units out of set deck. You know, Pit Rookie, you might see in a couple of Darius options and things of that nature, but generally, you're not going to necessarily have a whole lot that has a buff on it. So really, it's almost just a dead battlefield for your opponents, which especially in game one, could be a really big shift of the tide into your favor. Likewise, you get to see all of this. Showstopper so good to draw. Now, unfortunately, in the game that we saw, there was no showstopper that was even being seen for Squip there, unfortunately. But you get a buff friendly unit in your base, then move it to a battlefield. And if it doesn't have a buff, you just get to give it, of course. Sabotage, which can be really helpful, even in just game one, trying to figure out what's in your opponent's hand. And then being able to remove a non-unit from there, really good as well. Pit Rookie, Cloudfield as well, to be able to go ahead and buff it anytime another unit comes in. Pit Rookie, when you play me, buff another friendly unit. Soaring Scout to go ahead and get things moving with, being able to replace all the recycling you're doing. Hidden Blade, if you go ahead and need some additional draw, or if there's just a really big threat on your opponent's side, challenge to deal with those threats. Glory Seeker, First Mate to go ahead and ready unit. Arena Bar, you're only running one of that in that case. If you have it, it's great, just because it can go ahead and give a buff to anything that. And there's some crazy stuff that you can do with this set that is just absolutely outrageous. Call to Glory, such a great card. One of the big bread and butter cards of this deck can be played as a reaction as well. That's a very big note. Because you can even pass priority. Then if your opponent goes ahead and reacts, then you can play Call to Glory. Not only that, though, you can spend a buff. Anywhere on the field, you can spend that buff and then be able to add +3. Leona at the same time as well has Shield, +1 while defending. And then when you attack, you stun enemy units, which can be a very big difference maker. Kid 2 Monk to be able to add a bunch of buffs to 2 other units. And Kiana to be able to conquer and draw or channel a rune exhaust. A really big help right there. One of the more surprising things, though, and something that I absolutely loved, was Jin being included in this deck. Now, of course, you do have to be a little bit calculated in how you go about your turn, but there were multiple times where your opponent would go ahead and just attack into the battlefield, and you're like, oh, surprise, Jin's here. He can be played as a reaction, aka Flash, for those of you Magic the Gathering players. Has shield +2, so is immediately 5. And it has tank on top of that. And so we saw just how powerful it could be, mainly due to the fact that people would go ahead and play Thousand Tail Watcher, accelerated even, or otherwise. Sometimes it didn't come in accelerated. And then you would just go ahead and charge in with all of your units being -3, and you're like, oh, that really sucks. You would play Shin out, and it would completely catch your opponent off guard. Not only that, the tank is just so good as well, because those units that got -3, well, they're going to be able to hold on for the next turn, and then you're probably going to be able to take down your opponent here. And so I just got to say, I am a fan of Set. This is probably going to be one of the first decks that I end up playing, if I'm able to actually get all the cards that I need to be able to play this deck in real life. If not, of course, I'm probably just going to go Master Yi in the beginning, just because, of course, cards are going to be so difficult to get, potentially. But with that being said, Set is just such a fun deck. Again, though, a little bit complicated on how you need to go about it. I think we're still also trying to figure out the best build for Set. There are, of course, multiple ways that you can go here, but still, even seeing something like a Leona as an option here is really interesting. And of course, you have a lot of answers for going against the Kaisas. You have a Kneeling Spirit, which can be just absolutely huge on shutting down Kaisa. Sabotage to be able to remove stuff. Salvage to be able to take out dangerous gears. Auroras or otherwise. There's other gears that can be really destructive as well. And Fiora can be awesome because when she is mighty, aka having 5 or more might, then you can have deflect, tanking, and shield. That's awesome. And so just a really great unit right there. Now, Set has some very crazy combos that he can go ahead and do as well, which is so cool to be able to see. When I am played and when I conquer, buff me. If I don't have a buff, I get +1 bluff. Or buff. Bluff. Ugh, no. And spend my buff and give me +4 might this turn. Cool. So there were times that we saw some insane plays. He came into play ready, or, on the following turn, he was ready. Sorry. You would spend it, give him +4. He would go up to 8. Cool. Then you would go ahead and play a pit rookie. Give the buff to Set. Spin the buff. He goes up to 12. Then you go ahead and you go in and you conquer the battlefield. And on the conquer, he gets another buff. So then you could go ahead and have that insurance on him so that when he does get destroyed, well, Set just goes ahead and brings him back to base. And then you're able to do that all over again. So just really insane stuff. Now, not only that, there's going to be a couple of other things that you can end up going around. You've got Call to Glory. You've got just a lot of stuff that you can play to best utilize this set, and he can get big fast. I was playing him at locals even, and he was doing just really good at trying to be able to figure out the best ways to attack in, and I was able to hit the ground running so fast on my turn 2, turn 3, because I would play him out on turn 2 going second, and then it's like, cool, well, I've already spent another 2 turns building up my field outside of that. I'm going to be able to go ahead and give Set +8, and then be able to take any battlefield that I want, and then tell my opponent, hey, good luck, what do you have to do here now? So I'm really curious about this. Now, again, I still think there needs to be a little bit more refining with this deck. It might need a little bit more support in the next set as well. Unintentional, sorry, I'm a dad. Anyway, but with that being said, it's going to be really interesting to see what Set is able to do. He feels like he's almost there. He's almost there. He can still be very competitive while also being able to make a statement, but still, it feels like he's just not quite there yet. But again, the argument I would also make is, if we had 19 Kaisa decks. If we would have had 19 Set decks and as many Set decks and that was Kaisa deck, imagine I said that better. What would have the outcome of this of this trial been? Likewise with all the other decks as well, you can argue that as well to see how that would be, because that's a pretty big difference to be made as well. Still absolutely crazy that Master Yi didn't make it, but still, I digress. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this continues to go, especially as we launch in English. What decks are kind of gone after and sought after in this case compared to, what is just kind of left to the wayside, like Set, who hasn't necessarily had a whole lot of representation, whereas Victor has, for some reason, and things of that nature.
To cause an issue, at least one of them this turn, I think he accidentally recycled those runes instead of reading them. He's brought them back. So he's got 3 up for this turn, which is going to make his opponent think he has a Call to Glory. Is he going to think about the Shen? The Shen coming down, providing a tank with effectively 5 might because of the shield 2 keyword. It's going to really play into, depending on how Weijin Swag pushes these units into these boards. Now, could just forget it and just play this Falling Star that he's decided to top draw now. But maybe maybe Weijin Swag might decide to play into these battlefields with his units and utilize the Falling Star to kill some of those units in the backboard. I was going to say, does Set have a buff? It looks like he does. So he won't really be getting any value killing him. So these Shens could actually come into play here. I think he wants to use them defensively, as I don't believe you can use them when assaulting a battlefield. You can only use them whilst holding. So one of them is going to get some value here, and it could be that he decides to hold the second one to hold the battlefield to get him to 8 points next turn.
Well, that's going to be the thing. I think in this case, I would want to almost go ahead and target the Shin to be used wherever the Kaisa is going. The last thing I want is for my opponent to go ahead and get a card draw if they happen to conquer a battlefield. And so if I can go ahead and play the Shin and he can survive here in this exchange, cool. I will take out the Kaisa to stop you from being able to add another card in hand.
There's the
All right,
Shen
well-
getting slammed down.
Yep, Kai'Sa coming into the Targon's peak. Shen saying, no, this bird stays alive, and this is kind of a massive blowout here, because Kai'Sa was not expecting to go down this way.
Yeah, I
card
think
for
he
you.
was. Yeah, you are. You shall not pass, good sir. I think he decided that he would make a play into a potential call to glory, but I don't think he was calculating a Shen being slammed down like that, which definitely hurts Wage Swag's push now, having only one accelerated unit in his hand if he decides to hold on to the Darius and the Falling Star. I don't think he's going to get any value out of the Watcher here, so his options pretty limited if he wants to conquer both battlefields and hold them. I think he's gonna be in a pretty tough spot now. He's not got the draw from the Kaiser, so that was a really good play from Squip.
All right, Falling Star now going to get played here by Wage and Swag. What are our targets? Doesn't really feel like we have very many good options.
Yeah, that's the hard part. I feel like, though, you at least
Going
know that
after
your
the
opponent
Kinko.
is tapped out. Yeah, and so going after Kinko, very interesting idea there as well. But still, I mean, if you have to take something out, might as well worry about it. They are able to get the battlefield of Monastery, but and then here comes the Darius Beam, the second card activated, to go in for 7 on the other battlefield, clearing both in this case. But is that going to be enough to stop Squip from taking both on the following turn?
He's going to have to deal with a set brawler, which is going to be going up to 8 might next turn. He does ready his runes, but as we can see, he doesn't have any action or reaction cards in his hand. So he's going to have to hope that this Hopeful and Palti Poro on the left and the Darius on the right can hold out against the push. Ooh, there's the Kinku Monk, which can now buff set again, putting him to 12 might, potentially pushing in. So he does have the answers to both battlefields. I don't think there's a way, however, for the set player to push both battlefields here. So I think what Squip wants to do is potentially push one and hold it with the Shen.
If you had to pick a battlefield to go for, would you try to conquer Darius at the Targon's Peak, or try to draw a card over the Noxus Hopeful and the Pouty Poro in the Monastery of Harana?
Oh, I think I would have to try to go for the card draw in this case. It's like, yeah, well, and here's the hard part though too, because Darius can then, if you don't take out the Darius can go back to base at the start of the turn. You play 2 cards, Darius readies, gets +2 might, and can go ahead and help take both battlefields in this case. So it's tempting, because at first I thought, yes, let's go ahead and go for the card. But now I'm thinking, actually, that would be the wrong play in this case. And you have to go for the Darius, because after that, 2 cards played, and it's over at that point.
Oof. He does go for the Monastery, which is the correct play, but I mean, he's running into 3 runes that could have hurt him badly if Wage and Swag did have an answer there. He's decided to take the risk, burn the buff, conquer the battlefield. He'll then get another buff. Now he needs to decide whether he's going to hold on to these battlefields or decide, you know what, I got up to 7, I'll try and push for the 8 next turn. It looks like he's going to decide for the latter. He knows that he probably won't be able to hold on. Yeah, the Thousand Tail Watcher coming down is going to be able to deal with this set pretty handily. Asian Swag goes to 7 points now. The Shen, I don't believe, makes a difference here. The Shen comes in at 5 might. Set will be at 2. Oh, it would be a trade.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because I'm trying to figure out if we had just stacked everything in the Monastery of Harana, like if we move the bird, if we play the Kinko Monk in the Monastery and the Glory Singer, if we just have everything in there and reserve the right to play Shen, is there a way we could lose?
Yeah, that's just it.
From what we could see, no, but I'm wondering if Squib decided that was a risky play. Here comes the Watcher. It's the only play that Wasian Swag will have. And I think at this point, we're going to see the trade. Because the Shen is going to come in, provide the 5 might, along with the 2 that the set has. And that's an equal trade. The set will come back alive. And then it's down to Squip to push that Darius, which I believe he will have enough might for.
Yeah, most notably here, the trigger from the Thousand Tail Watcher is only when it enters play. Shen is not yet on the board because it comes in at reaction speed, so Shen kind of just dancing circles around probably one of the strongest abilities from the Kaisa deck, and that -3 might Fox fight modulation. And this kind of puts Squip in a very good position to take the game down on this final turn. Oh, wow, and a Pit Rookie 2 off the top.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big deal too. Opponents tapped out, and you just drew exactly what you needed to really get that extra insurance to secure this match. One has gone back and forth.
Yeah, really cool plays by this set. Kept it cool throughout, using that double Shen really to maximize all his value there. He gets the draws here, gets 2 draws in fact, because he's at 7 points. Can't win the game conquering that battlefield, so instead draws a card. See that set go up to its high might value of 8, slamming down the Kiku Monk to give it another buff, so it goes to 12, just to do a giant Shoryuken into Darius's chin and take game 1.
So the last deck that we are going to be talking about is Sold Out. This guy, man, I am impressed. You know, first off, he qualified at the top, of the trials, being able to do so well at the clashes that he was able to go up there. Now, with that being said, Sold Out is probably one of the top players as well. I would accurately argue, just because of bringing an Annie to this deck, or to this tournament. I'm a believer that the deck isn't necessarily a tier 1 deck. You're going to be going in at a little bit of a disadvantage. Excuse me. Mainly because Annie doesn't necessarily have all of the answers that you would necessarily want when playing this deck. It just feels like it needs that little bit more support to really take it into that tier 1. Even so, though, the cards that it has is able to be utilized so well. Now, first and foremost, Annie's ability, when you play me, return a spell from your trash to your hand, is so good already. And Annie, I would even argue, has probably the top 3 best legend abilities in this case. I would say it would probably be Lee, Set, and Annie, in my opinion. Really cool stuff right there. And being able to ready 2 runes at the end of your turn just is absolutely insane, because then you can go ahead and play things like Ride the Wind from hand, Flash from hand, anything from hand, really. Fight or Flight even. You can even hide this as well, but you don't necessarily need. With that being said, though, it's just so interesting of a deck. You have Stack Deck, one of the best cards, draw 1, essentially, after looking at 3 cards. That's absolutely crazy. Leave to get over some dangerous stuff. Traveling Merchant, discard cards. Vi is one of the best cards in this game. Has ganking. You go ahead and you discard your entire discard. You go ahead and move into a battlefield, conquer it, ride the wind, conquer the other battlefield. That can devastate your opponent. And then you also, on top of that, you're able to do a lot of really good board control as well. For example, with Fight or Flight, being able to move a unit from a battlefield to its base. Most of the time, opponents will probably be attacking in with one, like they see, for example, a Pouty Poro. They'll attack in with just 1 unit, and you're like, cool, it goes back to base, it's exhausted, now it can't attack in. That's really fun to be able to see. Sneaky Deck Hand is really good as well. You go ahead and play 3, it immediately goes into a battlefield, and you're just like, oh, yeah, you get that point. And then with that as well, you have your removals, Falling Star, Void Seeker, and things of that nature. Vayne, Kaisa, and Darius. So some really great stuff to really control the battlefield. Fading Memories can be really good as well. Give a unit at a battlefield or gear temporary, which means it gets killed at the beginning phase of its controller's, or at its controller's beginning phase.
Rebuke could also really slow down your opponent, especially when playing the Auroras. You know, returning a very high cost unit back to their hand, and now they have to cast it again and not get the benefit off of playing it with Aurora can really slow it down. And Gus, for the little units who you just want to send back to hand, that again can be really slowing down your opponent. We saw Annie decks in the past that did play a lot of Gust in this case, so it's really cool to be able to see that Gust is being side decked instead, because yeah, sometimes it does feel just a little bit too slow in certain matchups and is almost a dead card at that point. So really cool stuff to be able to see. Sold Out was able to play this deck so incredibly well, though. It was so fun to be able to see. Now, he did go against the Volley Bear in this case as well, and was able to go ahead and take it down to be able to make it into the top 4, where he did inevitably lose to a Kaisa. So really sad to be able to see, but still, this is just proof that, yeah, you definitely need to be a high-skilled player to be able to pilot this deck. I definitely think that Annie can be one of the more complicated decks to go ahead and try to pilot. But still, you are able to do so much with this deck. And I gotta say, Sold Out, great job on what you've been able to do. He plays in the league that I run as well, and is one of the top players in the league as with that. So I'm so curious to see what he's going to be able to do. And being a top 4 Annie, it is just such a great card to be, or such a great deck. And he's definitely made me be like, I might want to play that, because I think especially you have the advantage of your opponent not necessarily being prepared to go against Annie. You're going to be testing against Kaisas. You're going to be testing against, you know, Yees and things of that nature. Cool, that's awesome and all. But Annie? You know, and so you're almost catching your opponent off guard a lot. Now, of course, this game, again, hasn't been released in English yet, so, you know, who are you really going to be going against in that case? But even still, Annie can be something that really surprises your opponent, and then you're just like, what are you guys doing? Like, I just can't prepare for this, you know? And so it's just so fun to be able to see. And, I mean, guys, go ahead and check out this gameplay of Sold Out playing Annie. Just a really great job again at being able to just take this to his opponent and show him why he cannot count Annie out, especially when Sold Out is piloting this great legend.
Turn, so you kind of have to sacrifice 4. That is probably just happening, as we do see a Stupefy is going to at least attempt to make this trade, but that is going to come at a cost with the deflect from the Pouty Poro. And I think Solt's position ends up being really nice, because we actually know that there is the Ride the Wind, so there is even more potential to try and get an additional Conquer, or at least to play around this Stupefy and not just let the trade go through. Solt can try and push to 4 points on this turn.
Yeah, gonna be delaying definitely the Darius Cleave combo, as well as this Dr. Mundo, as we see in hand here. The trade is fine here, coming out completely clearing Zon. Let's see what the draw is here. Fox is claimed in the hand of Wasian. On the other side, we see a flash.
Yeah, and I was curious what the direction Sold was going to go. He decides to commit the Darius. I was wondering if he'd try and hold that back in favor of doing something like Ride the Wind, but I think he is very much looking to keep this Vi Ride the Wind combo. He's on Zon Warren, so it's going to be a pretty big stack that you're able to get for this Vi. And all that matters is you get to 6 points. So even if this somewhat were to sacrifice the Darius, you would not be too worried. And he had the flash to defend. So end of the day, loses out to Falling Star. But any kind of attack into the Darius with Cleave or any other spells targeting the Zon Warren's location, he had this flash available to just move Darius back and look to get that Conquer.
And you see it coming out here, defensive play, being able to flash back the Kaisa to avoid that Falling Star.
The Void Seeker for that one, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Void Seeker.
No,
Thank you. Yeah, and then Kaisa coming out here onto the Reaver's Row. We see here, what? In the other hand, oh, that's the Void Seeker on the... Okay, my apologies, I'm keeping up now.
Attack here.
Attacking now for Noxus Hope. Trying to get the tempo back. And obviously, looking at the hands, we can see that he's able to be a lot more aggressive on this play.
Guard Watcher.
Do you think?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you think Soul is able to, maybe not. I was gonna say the defensive play of like casting out and then being more defensive on the flash, but he might want to push pressure here.
Yeah, I think one of the big things for Sold Out is getting to 6 in position with Vi Ride the Wind available, and that's going to be the big thing to look for. And this hand is not quite going to allow it. But what I love here is you can send this in
on my priority. I'll cast Cleave on the Kaisa.
Send this in, buffing up.
Cleave. Did Weijin already pass?
Yeah, I'll just retreat.
Must have.
I'll get a point. I'll draw a card.
That's interesting.
Didn't have. It's unfortunate. I think they played that slightly wrong because you're supposed to do attack and defend triggers first,
right,
and then move to the action phase there. So kind of revealed some information to Weijin that didn't need to come through. If Weijin decided to stay in, it could have been a bit of a blowout. But I love the use of Ride the Wind here from Sold Out because you want to get your Vi in position with Vi Ride the Wind when you're at 6 points. He's going to 6 from conquering with the Kaisa, and now he gets to move her back, and he can play Annie to rebuy that Ride the Wind to set up for the Vi on the next turn to end the game. So this is well within Sold Out's hands to end the game. The Ride the Wind is back. He's got a 9 stack for this Vi to push her up to 12. There is not really anything that Weijin can do because when we look at the runes, there's not even the option to go conquer something in Jam Mundo.
Yeah, just completely incredible the way that he was able to bounce those between the battlefield and gain this tempo. We'll see what Weijin has to offer. Not a lot in terms of being able to handle this with our information known in the hands, but you can see here playing out the Kaisa, contemplating now what to do next. Thought process maybe.
Let's go ahead and pop the Kaisa.
Okay, he's just gonna.
There you go.
Yep, there it is.
You might as well use the resources that you've got, right? So Soul decides, okay, well, if you think you need to draw a card, I'm not going to let you draw a card. So he fighter flights the Kaisa back, not allowing any filtering for Weijin. And Soul, this game is locked up based on the hand knowledge. We know Soul has Vi Ride the Wind.
Yeah. Obviously, Weijin trying to play this to the best of his ability, but doesn't know the pure power that exists in Soul's hand currently.
Score.
Again, playing out Noxus Hove again, back onto the battlefield. Contemplating now.
That makes sense.
Discarding Mundo. Let's see here. Falling Star drawn. Well, I don't think much has changed with anything that's happened now. Taps out, stupefies.
That resolves.
The Kaisa, and it resolves. I mean,
no, I mean Weijin's in a position to play the Falling Star, can set up to clear the board. You can be in a great position considering the board state. We just know Soul's hand. We know that Soul has Vi plus Ride the Wind, and Weijin knows that Ride the Wind was just bought back by Annie, so I think he can assume the writing is on the wall here. You're going to get that Vi in, pop 12, up to 15, Ride the Wind to one location, gank to the other. Good game. Not going to be anything that you can do on 3 runes to stop this.
No. Really clean game coming out here from Soul.
You got it.
Really utilizing it, and a handshake comes out, and we move on to game 2. Wow, brilliant play.
So we are ever closer to getting released. October 31st is, almost like 20 days away. That's pretty insane to think about. And so it's going to be fun to see how everything comes about when release is finally here. I can't wait to see what ends up happening. But with that being said, guys, the Riftlab trials are over and done with, at least for now. We'll see what ends up going. But again, Jacob is going to be traveling around and hosting tournaments, or, having tournaments at the local game stores and things of that nature as well. There's a lot of really exciting stuff that is coming about with this. Not only that, these tournaments aren't necessarily going to be as casted on Tabletop Simulator anymore at all, especially once because we really want to just encourage playing with the actual card. That's going to be the biggest thing. Play with the actual card. It is great to be able to play online, to be able to play test, get that practice. But when all is said and done, play in person, support the game in person, and actually buy the card. So it's going to be fun to see, because we're also maybe even going to have some online play with actual decks over webcams as well. And that's going to be super fun to be able to see. With that being said, though, what were your thoughts about the Riftlab Trials? Were you excited to see, Annie make it to the top and facing off against 3 different guys in the top 4 in this case? What were you kind of disappointed of? What did you absolutely love? And what deck do you think you are going to play when this game releases on October 31st? Go ahead and let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, guys, have a good one.